Hi, folks. Jim Gishwin here. Hey, the Democrats, I haven't seen the Democrats this messed up since the late 60s, okay, after Nixon won. All right. I mean, they had telethons back in the 60s, sit there and try to raise money for the Democrats. Of course, they don't have to do that. They got enough billionaires on their side. But when are they going to learn? They're sitting there defending such horrible things going on. Do they actually understand? Fetterman and one other guy are sitting there actually making some sense. They're saying, guys, why don't you sit there and get involved in it, and that way you have a say. I thought, didn't Bernie Sanders sit there and say he wanted to work with the Doge people? Well, hey, get in there, Bernie. If you got something to say, at least you're in with the group. They got this miracle team of 20-something guys that are all Z generation guys, but they're smart as hell. And they're going in there and they're finding all sorts of stuff. They're going to find over $1 trillion. I will guarantee you. And what do these judges get off saying that the executive department can't audit their own people? If you were CEO of a company, wouldn't you be able to audit your own company? That's all it is they're pulling audits on people. Okay? And telling people to come to work or get fired. Hey, Reagan did that with the air controllers. Anyway, things are messed up. Still, in Europe and things like that. I love that speech. You have to sit there and Google the speech that the vice president made in Munich. It was a statesman-like speech, and he sat there and said, look, figure out what you want to defend instead of what you want to defend against. He said, give us something to defend for. He said, you guys are losing free speech over here in Europe. Okay? It's going to sit there and inhibit your ability to sit there and be creative and to have inventions, innovations. And we know that. That's how America got great, is because we had freedom. We had innovation. We had tons of innovation. And now we got this genius, Elon Musk. He's our Einstein of this generation. He's our Werner von Braun of this generation. He's going to get us to Mars and everything else. And people are bitching about him. He's actually a federal employee. So you can't sit there and bitch about that. So he is a federal employee hired in the Dodge. He's hired for free, of course. Okay? And the Supreme Court can't sit there and rule against Trump on this. It just can't possibly do it. Okay? I'm having a hard time. Okay, this is the anniversary of my wife's death, and I'd like to sit there and read you something. Okay, let me pull it up here. There we go. I do this every year on the anniversary of Jean's death in July. But this year, I'm going to do it on the anniversary of Vickie's death. Vickie gave me 10 wonderful years of marriage and love. Jean gave me almost 20, 19 and a half, something like that. I was blessed, but I was also sorrowed to have to bury 2 loving wives. And it made me think about love. And I published this back in 2011, and I sit there and publish it every year. Now, it does have a copyright on it. You can't sit there and you can't change it, but you can put my byline on it. You can use it as long as you put my byline on it and you don't change a word. Okay? Those are my rules, and that's my permission. So let me sit there and do this for you. What is love? Such a simple thing to try and explain, such a complex subject. It's hard sometimes to imagine our lives without love. And like many, I've had many types of love as well, and have lost that love, just as many of you have. I couldn't possibly begin to describe the various types of love. You got agape love, unconditional, which is the highest form. Family love is included. Love between siblings, parents, and their children, which can be best described as that bond that never disappears, no matter how much a family might fight and bicker among themselves. Best friend love is just a comfortable familiarity of knowing that you can be yourself at all times. Okay? I have a hard time getting through this sometimes. Okay. Soulmate love encompasses many of the previous definitions: a fictitious love at first sight, and finally the false notion of love as passion and lust. I'm reminded of an old movie that was one of my favorites of Jimmy Stewart called Shenandoah. The movie, to me, contained so many life lessons that I took it to heart. I remember the scene when young Doug McClure nervously came to see Jimmy Stewart and ask for his daughter's hand. And I'll try and share it with you as much as it reminds me of the love of my life and my soulmate of 19 years that just passed away, and also my soulmate of 10 years that passed away. And luckily became assigned as my new guardian angel. In fact, when me and Jean were dating many years ago, didn't know we were in love yet, I tried my best, Jimmy Stewart, and recited the scenes to her by heart, and brought a beautiful smile to her eyes and lips. I think that's what I really did win her over. I guess that, and it goes something like this. Doug McClure comes in and says, "Sir, I'd like to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage." Well, why, Sam? Well, do you like her? Well, sir, I love her. No, Sam. You see, I asked if you liked her. You can love someone without liking them, and then you can learn to love, but you can't learn to like. If you love a woman without liking them first, the nights can be cold. I think I was married to Margaret for a while, and I liked her. I liked her a lot. Then one day it just dawned on me that I loved her. Oh, sir, I've always liked Jenny. I've always liked her a lot. Well then, son, you take her and you treat her right, because if you don't, it's going to be between you and me. And that was the scene that I always thought about. Okay? I always thought about. Plus the fact that my mother always said, never meet a woman in a bar. She's there because she's got problems. You want her problems, you go ahead and pick her up. I think one can easily see that was always one of my greatest life lessons back when movies actually taught us a moral story. I don't think I really took it to heart until I met my recent love. Ours was a special love. She had a wonderful smile on her face and beautiful eyes that told me there was a special soul inside. Like many men my age, it took me a few failures to figure out what we think we want when we are young and the hormones are raging and it isn't quite cracked up to be. Love based on pure passion and physical attraction loses its fizzle just as soda goes flat quickly. There's something I couldn't put my finger on with this woman. In fact, I met her a night when my best friend and I, after work, were doing karaoke circuit, and I was singing. Suddenly a woman, who it turned out later was a caregiver locally and was on her only night off, started dancing alone in front of me as I sang Teddy Bear. I was really kind of irritated because she was taking my concentration off the song. I made a bet with my friend that night that I could get anyone's phone number that night as we bar hopped, I got hers. In fact, I scored a number of phone numbers from some pretty strange individuals. When we got back to my apartment, I threw them away one by one, except the very last one, hers, and I quietly slipped it into my top pocket. By the way, I'd often sing Goodbye Norma Jean for her, as one of her last wishes was for me to sing that song for her since it was her name. I do it often, and as a tribute to the night we met and the song I was singing, I always received a teddy bear from her every Christmas. To make a long story short, I did a lot of romantic antics to win her heart, but I think the story above did it for her and me. We went down to the courthouse to get a license, and on a whim, allowed the clerk to sit there and marry us. Yes, I liked her a lot, but I never really experienced the true soulmate love. About a year later, I was sitting on the back porch, just thinking, and it occurred to me that I really loved this lady. And then I remembered again my favorite movie. Well, we spent 19 wonderful years together. We had joy and sorrow together, as many couples do. And our love grew each and every day to the point where we couldn't stand to go or do anything without the other. We bought and rebuilt our home 3 times after hurricanes together. She grew up in poor Mississippi sharecropper's daughter, picking cotton after school, second youngest of 9, and I was determined to give her a better life and become more ambitious late in my life. In fact, during those last couple of years, I've worked away from her, coming home every 5 or 6 weeks for a few days and spending countless hours on the phone with her. We actually grew closer during those periods. In the past couple of months, she became terminally ill. I found myself selfishly crying over losing the only wonderful thing in my life. How selfish was this that she never complained. By the time I bought her a cruise as a present, she wasn't able to take it. I sunk into deep depression myself, knowing that my love was too late. Our division of labor in the house was she paid the bills and I earned and kept getting promoted and sending all the money home. Recently, the hospice told me that I had better start my 18-hour drive home from work. As I was packing and getting ready to go, she called and said, "You don't have much leave left. Coming home all the time. Save it for when we need it." I stayed packed until about 2 days later. She called and said, "Honey, come home. It's time." I made it in record time, 11 hours. I spent the last 24 hours holding her last 24 hours, holding her hand and praying to God to give her a reprieve or not let her suffer. She refused the morphine. She continued to smile the whole time as I laid my head on her body and cried unabashed like a little baby, praying for her not to leave, but to take me instead. In her last hour, I selfishly would gently push on her diaphragm, unnoticed, hoping and praying for one more breath until the little gasps became more spaced, and finally her chest didn't rise again, and her hand went limp in mine. I thought for a moment I could still see her beside me, comforting me and saying, "It's all right." She passed on the anniversary of my youngest sister's untimely death, and I thought I could hear her voice in my head telling me it was okay. Amid the confusion of having the funeral home and nurses arrange for her departure from our home of 19 years, I managed to get a lock of her hair and became angry when they wouldn't let me walk her out to the waiting funeral home vehicle from the house. I realized how much I loved her then. A day later, I started going through our bills and trying to distract myself with paperwork. I found her last little scribbled note on a ragged piece of scratch paper. It said, "Goodbye, my love. Sorry I hurt you. Love, Jean." It was then that tears started all over again, and I reaffirmed my love and what losing her meant to me. In my loneliness, I take that worn note out day after day out of my top pocket, and the tears slowly ooze from my eyes every time I read it. I didn't understand how she thought she had hurt me. I would walk slowly through our home. Suddenly, she was everywhere with me, comforting me. And then it dawned on me, God had replaced that sorry excuse verse guardian angel I had before and given her back to me as a new angel. She is with me at all times. As a side note, many months followed my loved one's passing. I re-entered the dating scene reluctantly, but with outward gusto, knowing that my love wanted me to be happy again. Hard to believe, but all my prayers were answered as I finally found someone who immediately touched me with tender emotions and returned my love. I no longer do believe in love at first sight and feel my guardian angel, Jean, smiling down on me with tender warmth and approval. Having had true love before, it's readily and easily recognizable, and I knew what I had. I just can't understand how this lowly individual can be blessed with so much love in a lifetime. I know who I have to thank. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jean, for leading me down the right path. Sitting there republishing this on the anniversary of Vickie's death, the 10 years of marriage following the 20-year marriage, so my 30 years of wonderful, wonderful love. God bless you, Vickie. God bless you, Jean. God bless you, Mary Ann, my sister. And God bless you, my son, JJ, who died of an overdose, and I was just notified this month at 47 years of age in Honolulu. And also my brother, I'm praying for him. He keeps having strokes in Germany, 10 years younger than me. I'm praying that he gets better. Apparently he's got a faulty pacemaker. I don't know what's going on there, but he's having a miserable time. So please join me in prayer for all these wonderful people that have passed before us and that are suffering right now. I ask this in the name of the Lord, but I also ask you to join me in prayer. And I'd like to sit there and add prayers for our president, vice president, and our Doge members so that they can survive these slings and arrows that are being cast upon them. With that, I leave you with God bless you, God bless America, and I remain your humble servant. See you next week.